Good morning and afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Fast Track Friday Hangout with the Autodesk HSM. Today we have Xander Luciano. He's an Autodesk intern at Pier-9, a content developer and a programmer that we have working with us. Xander, welcome on our webinar today. You got it. So it's exciting to have Xander. He's got a lot to talk about today. He's going to talk about some of the projects he's working on at Pier-9 and what he's going to be doing over the summer. It's awesome. But before we do, I'd like to ask a couple questions real quick. And I also want to let you know today is the 16th, June 16th, the last day to vote for your classes at Autodesk University. So if you haven't voted yet, go to our website at Autodesk University and vote for your class that you'd like to see this year. Okay, so real quick, I want to ask a poll question of you guys. Have you been to Autodesk University yet? If you can let us know, give us some feedback. This way we know as we get into the year, if there's people that need help being able to get to Autodesk University, we can get more information to you. It also helps us to get to know the members of our audience and in our community who's joined us in the past and who's going to join us in the future. Awesome, guys. Looks like the votes are really coming in. We really appreciate your taking the time to vote. All right, I'm going to close them out. And let me share those votes with you guys. So it looks like there's a lot of people who will be watching some of the recordings from Autodesk University. But it's good to get your feedback to let you know, and we get a good idea of who's going to be joining us at AU this year. Another quick poll question for you. We want to know what's going to help drive your growth. And we do ask this question when we do our Hangouts each week, but it's always good to get this information back, especially when we have new members who join us in our community, to let us know where we can add content that's going to help you each week when we do the webinars, as well as information and feedback we can get to our developers to know where they can spend the time to develop in the future to make sure that we're able to help you grow and drive that growth in your organization. Cool, guys. Looks like there's a lot of votes in. Appreciate that feedback. I'm going to close them out now. And it looks like we have, again, a good portion of you guys, the same as we did last week when we had Matt Nichols with us, who are really looking to drive the fourth and fifth axis on those machines. That'll help them drive the growth. So again, thanks guys. We really appreciate this feedback and it does help us. So let me bring it back to Xander. So Xander, he's going to show us a lot of the projects he's working on as an intern and what's up and coming as he's working with Autodesk and doing a lot of his wizardry in programming. So Xander, take it away.
All right, thank you, Wayne. All right, so I'm Xander. Like Wayne said, I'm an intern here. And real quick today, just going over what we're going to talk about. Just going to introduce myself to those of you who don't know who I am or, obviously haven't heard of me. Kind of what I'm doing, my current projects, I've got two big ones that I want to talk about, and that's going to be the main focus of today. And one is one that you can use right now, and the other is one that I'm going to be starting pretty soon here on Monday, I think. So real quick, just a quick background. I am a manufacturing engineering student at Cal Poly SLO. I am finishing up my second year. This was actually my finals week, so I just finished my exams. I have been kind of doing the whole CAD CAM thing for about 6 years. I started as a freshman in high school. I've started with SolidWorks. I'm a CSWP. I did metrology, so reverse engineering and a lot of inspection. And then I also got a lot of kind of just self-taught development knowledge between C++, JavaScript, PHP, kind of just like a whole range of things that I've just kind of taught myself that I was interested in. And then my hobbies, I do photography, videography, so making tutorials came pretty easily. Jeeps and off-roading, so a lot of custom fabrication, and that's where the CAD CAM really got exciting for me. Work, I consider work a hobby at this point because I spend a lot of time on it. And I'm going to be an intern for just over a year. It'll be about year 2-3 months right now. So I've been doing some pretty cool stuff over my entire internship. And over the course of my internship, what I've kind of done is a lot of video tutorials. So I have a YouTube channel. Links right there. If you just go to youtube.com/XanderLuciano, you can see my YouTube page. I have everything from just basic machining videos on my little desktop CNC machine because it was the only thing that actually fits in a dorm room. and then over to some Fusion tips. And those range anywhere between kind of intermediate level, basic levels, but they go very, very fast, I've been told. And I just want to remind people, there's a pause button and there's a half speed button on YouTube. Even though it sounds a little funny when I'm talking at half speed, that way you can still get it. I just wanted to try and get as much information as I could in something that wasn't going to be a half-hour video. And over the course of the internship, I've been doing anything between programming, doing NCViewer.com, kind of QA testing. So kind of my job there was to try and find bugs and issues before you guys do, ideally. And when I fail at that, then I get to go help out on the forums and try and answer any questions you guys have, and whatever weird things you guys need to find workarounds for. I kind of enjoy those weird tasks where someone will ask a question and kind of takes a little bit of thinking to try and find a cool workaround. I also show off on Instagram because I had that little tiny desktop dorm room CNC, and volunteer for webinars apparently. And then post-processor customization, that fit in nicely with some of the development stuff I've done in the past. So moving along with kind of what I've given to the community so far, I did a whole write-up on tolerances and smoothing, because this is one of those topics that came up, and there was a couple rule of thumbs just around online. I think Al wrote the first one. And beyond that, no one had really figured out kind of a relationship between how much tolerance, how much smoothing, and how they all relate. And so kind of what I did, if you just go to that link right there at the very top, or just search for understanding smoothing on Google with Autodesk at the end, it'll pop up. And I found that about a 1-to-1 ratio or 1-to-2 ratio between smoothing and tolerancing. So either your smoothing is equal to tolerance or your smoothing is half of your tolerance, will give you kind of the best bang for your buck. It won't take extra time to calculate the toolpath. And that's kind of what I'm showing on this image right here. This line right here, that is the generation time. So right about here is the 1-to-1 mark, and if you start going below that and having more smoothing than tolerance, you actually start increasing your generation time, and beyond that, you're not really gaining much file size. They're all relatively the same file size. So yeah, too long didn't read, 1-to-1 ratio. Wrap toolpaths, just kind of that's a cool video that I did kind of on the intermediate side. And you guys can all look at these later. I think this webinar is on YouTube. So just check out my YouTube page, and whatever interests you. And if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to do videos on specific questions. And beyond that, the other two projects that I've done, NCViewer.com and post-processor customization, are the two I want to talk about right now. And let's start with the post-processor customization. So this is something that you guys have all probably heard about if you guys have done anything with, oh, did those things not go away? Hold on, let me clear that. Post-processor customization is something that a lot of guys are either familiar with or have heard before. But to make it short for those who don't know, it's just kind of customizing the posts for your G-code to get whatever you need to work the way you want it to. And they're all written in JavaScript, and if you want to make any edits, you'd have to have some type of background in JavaScript, or you'd have to have some type of programming experience, or you'd have to have a lot of patience and some pretty good Googling skills in order to figure out what you want to get to. So it's not exactly something that I would say is friendly to beginners. So this summer, kind of like the project that after talking to Al and Renee, the project that I wanted to work on was making an online graphical user interface to make post-processor customization a lot easier. So that way, instead of having to go into code and learning how to code in order to customize it, this way you could go in and either drag and drop things around or go in and just change values up that way and have it kind of do that for you without having to do all the in-depth stuff. So that's kind of like the broad overview of the idea. And so to kind of define this idea, I wanted to define the problems that we have right now, the solutions I would like to see in my quote-unquote ideal perfect solution, And then I want to get your guys' feedback as far as what you guys are thinking about it. And I got a couple questions that I'll have on the polls for you guys later on for that. So we're going to first talk about the problems that I have kind of outlined and thought of that we have right now. And that is editing posts is daunting for new users. So as little code as we can, if we can hide as much code away from them and just have people be able to drag and drop, perfect. Then they don't have to learn the post-processor engine. They don't have to learn JavaScript. Everything could just be kind of nice and easy and laid out for you. The other side of it is it kind of, for our support guys, if support is doing a lot of post-processor customization and it takes a while to get it to a perfect standpoint, then it kind of takes their focus elsewhere when they could be helping on bugs or kind of more in-depth problems, and less so on these small things that take a long time. So it'll help kind of streamline that process, hopefully, too. And then a lot of stuff that I've seen so far, too, just between like the forums and users that I've talked to before, is that a lot of the post-processor customizations are kind of simple things where maybe the coolant code is wrong, or maybe they want something on a separate line, or small stuff like that, where you're not really changing the whole structure of the code so much as you are just making a few formatting changes or a few parameter changes. So if we keep that in mind, that we're not going to be doing any large issues, then I think we can kind of narrow the scope down a little bit. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention, because programming is, if you're doing your own post-processor, you're editing the post-processors that you have, you're going to run into bugs. And I'm pretty sure anyone who's trying to make a post-processor would rather be running a machine than trying to hammer out bugs. So hopefully this is something that will address all those points all at once. And so this is kind of, this is how I would see the perfect solution given infinite time, infinite money, and infinite resources. So simple edits, so like I said, kind of like formatting and changing codes. You'd have a user interface. Everything would be very similar, so if you're trying to change like a G code, it'd be a uniform layout, something that's kind of easy to understand, and you don't have to go digging through manuals. So maybe you could base your G codes off of the HAWS codes, or say this is going to start with the FANUC and then we'll edit from there, instead of having to build up from a ground zero. So you kind of change what you have like you would right now. The other thing is, because Fusion is Mac and Windows, is it would have to be operating system independent. So a web client is obviously the easiest solution since everyone has access to a web browser. And then on the programming side, we want something that is modular, as in I can easily add more features to it, and something that I can extend easily. So if I have a very basic feature to begin with, and then later on I come back and I make it have even more features, then trying to keep that scope in mind and keeping in mind that I want to grow it and continuously develop it, you got to kind of break things apart into modulars, or not modulars, modules. And then going one step further, what I would think would be really cool, since everything is now quote-unquote cloud, is if you're making these posts, then they should be shareable. So I think it'd be really cool to be able to create a custom post for your machine that has some weird controller, and once you're done with it, you could just post it on like the community post, and then people could come around later, maybe like 2 years later, someone has the same control, they find your post and they say, hey, this works for me, thank you so much, and they could like vote, say like, yeah, that's a good post. And then if it happens to be bad, then it would be a good way to kind of grow our post library without so much involvement, crowdsourcing basically. A lot more people would have a lot more information than a few people. So I think that'd be really cool to kind of create a large community-driven post processor in a way. And then going along with that, I think using the Autodesk account. So this is something I've been looking into recently, just kind of on my own, was how to authenticate users with the Autodesk login. So I think it'd be really cool if you could then have your Autodesk account linked onto this. So then maybe one day in the future, what you do is you say, oh, here's a post from my machine. I'll just click add to my account, And without having to download it and put it in a folder and then do it that way, you just add it to your account and it's now in your cloud posts. So I think long term, this would be my quote unquote ideal solution. And it's definitely far stretched, but you know, set your sights high and maybe we'll get partially there. So along with what I want, I have to keep in mind the challenges that we'll run into. So the minimum viable product, what can we complete in the course of my 3-month internship? So this is where I'm going to have poll questions for you guys at the end of this is to help me try and figure out basically what would be the basis that we would want to touch. One of the main challenges, to be honest, is actually designing a user interface. And my favorite quote as far as anything goes related to programming is, a user interface is like a joke. If you have to explain it, it's not that good. So to me, I feel that user interfaces, while really difficult to design intuitively, a well-done user interface should not need any tutorials at all. It should just speak for itself. So hopefully, with feedback and talking to you guys, I'd be able to develop a user interface that flows well, that directs users in a very easy way. It's tough though. It's definitely one of the toughest things for me is designing that, especially with the NCViewer that I have, is trying to fit everything and make it look nice and still work. And then beyond that is what features would I want to prioritize, you know? Would formatting as far as changing an M code be more important than being able to change the position or the number? Do you want to change just one at a time, or would you be changing a whole set? So kind of thinking about what the criteria for what a quote-unquote modification would be. And the thing is, I don't want to make it too simple to where you could change like all of these M codes all at once, but I also don't want it to be too complex where you could even change, say, the letter M to something else and go really far in depth, because two reasons for each one is it's either going to be very difficult to develop and the users are going to spend a lot of time trying to get it to do what they want, or it just won't be very useful to them and no one will use it because it won't be very feature rich. So there's a balance there between usability and how much like development time and how easy it is to use. So this is where I think I have a bunch of questions that these questions are more open-ended, and so if anyone has any responses to these at any point, please feel free to like DM me on Instagram or something. But Wayne, would you mind throwing up the first poll question? Diego, that is a good point, actually, like having the ability to show the code on the side. I haven't thought about that. I was thinking of doing like a snap framework, but I definitely think there'd be a way to show the code too. It's not very hard.
And you're specifically saying you want to show the outputted code, not the code like the JavaScript code that is the post processor, I assume.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, do you mean you want to show the post processor or what the end result would be, or both?
Also, when you said not very hard, famous last words.
I would normally say that would be actually really difficult because I'd want to have like syntax highlighting, but because I have the code editor in NCViewer.com on the side, I can just use the same framework for that on this one. Save myself some time there.
So Xander, it looks like we have a good portion of people who voted, and it looks like 81% of people say yes, they've needed a custom post, and 19% said no.
All right. That's good. So there's definitely a large need for this. Hopefully most of those edits are kind of more in the simple range, but I think the second poll question kind of addresses what type of edits. So now that we know a lot of people have edits or have edited or need an edit, what type?
So it looks like people are actively voting right now and picking what type of edits that they would most likely need. All right, guys, I'm going to close it out. Thank you guys for voting. And then here's the results.
All right, so this is interesting too, because this is kind of what I was thinking too, where you get two types, where you have the advanced, where you'd want to have lots of subprograms where you're able to do a lot of custom stuff, but then you also have a lot of people who are just looking for formatting. And being able to help out a quarter of the people right here, 25%, that's a pretty good portion. So there's definitely a need, and there's definitely a market, I guess, is what I could consider it. So that's good to know. That's good to keep in mind. I don't think anything like doing subprograms and custom cycles would be feasible within a 3-month period, but formatting I definitely think would be possible. So moving on from that, I'm going to come back to this, I think, later on, and I definitely want to hear from you guys over Instagram or YouTube or however you guys manage it, Twitter, however you guys find me. Definitely let me know your answers to some of these other open-ended questions as far as what you'd like to see specifically. And I'll definitely keep those in mind. So the other big project that I've been working on, and some of you may have seen this on Instagram if you follow me, and that is NCViewer.com. So just right off the bat here, one more poll question. I promise this will be the last one, but this one will kind of curious. It's going to be about backplotting. Oh, there we go. Can you do that last one? Perfect. This one doesn't require multiple answers, so it's good. It looks like a good portion of you guys actually don't know what a backplotter is, and this is kind of the reason why I wanted to at least have that one in there. And a backplotter is a way of checking that your G-code is outputting correctly after you post-process it. Or if you have a G-code file and you're not sure what it is, you could backplot it and then view it. So I'm just going to pull up mine real fast, ncviewer.com, and just give a live demo. See if I can escape out of this. And this is the beta version, so a little bit different. But if you had, say, an NC file and you didn't know what it was, so if I didn't know what ATC 32 demo, I don't know what 32 demo is, I could just drag and drop it, and now I can instantly see what that G-code file is, even if I don't have that original file. So it's just a quick way to check that it's going to be running correctly. This is a 5-axis file too. So another thing that it can do is we can see the tool angles. So as I go around this, we can see where the tool will be. We do like a simulation, see how the tool will move. I'll talk more about that as I go through the slides though. But overall, it's just kind of a way of, it does exactly what it does when you hit simulate inside of Fusion or Inventor HSM or HSMWorks, but it's with G-code directly instead of the intermediate format. All right, so I just kind of wanted to talk about kind of the technologies that I've used inside of this backplotter. So, like I said, with what a backplotter is, it's parsing the G-code. So instead of having an intermediate format that is then run through the post-processor and giving you G-code, it's doing the reverse of that. So it's like a reverse post-processor in a way. And what it does is it goes line by line. It looks at what G-codes are in there. And it says, okay, this is a linear move. We'll display a linear move from X1 to X2, like that. And then it does that for every single line. So even if it's a very large file, it'll go through and it'll parse thousands of lines per second. Bidirectional information, and by that I mean if I click on a part of the toolpath, I can see what position the point is at. I can then get the spindle speed at that point. I can get the tool vector. I can get what tool number is on it, what offset, if cutter comp is on, all that type of stuff like that. So you could either look at the G-code or you could look at the actual plot of it after the fact. And one place where this would be useful is if it's on like the machine floor, on the machine shop floor, and you might not have access to a full copy, or maybe you have a limited computer, but you have the actual G-code file. A lot of controls have inside the control, you can actually do a plot of what it'll look like, of what your toolpath will look like. And that way you kind of have a rough idea of where the tool is going to go, and that way you're not just hitting start blindly sometimes. Another thing that I kept in mind with this one is it's extensible. So by that I mean different controllers use different G codes. There's different types of, there's like conversational, and just like regular G code. And so depending on that, there's different controllers that I'm actually kicking in depending on how much data is actually read. So if it doesn't like, if it goes through so many lines and it doesn't see anything, it'll try a different control format, and that way it'll, on its own, without you having to tell it what control it's using, it can figure it out. It's kind of like a trial and error. It takes a little bit more time on larger files if it's not something it's expecting, but it supports like Haas, Fanuc, Tormach, Pathpilot, a lot of the common ones. Non-conversational Heidenhain, it does do right now. Conversational takes a little bit more effort, and I haven't done that just yet. I haven't had enough people ask for it. The graphics are all done with WebGL via 3.js, and that is just it's a simple like 3D JavaScript library for the browser, so I don't have to write WebGL directly myself. Super handy, but I'm kind of just bypassing most of the fancy stuff and just doing what's called gl.lines. And that is a single 1 pixel wide line with no option to make it any wider on Windows. On Mac and Linux, it can be wider. Even though you saw arcs on there, there's actually no way to draw arcs natively. So all of the arcs are actually approximations using lines. And on that beta version, the closer you zoom in, the further it makes those lines too. So it kind of tries to keep that completely correct profile. And the best part about it being web-based is it works on all operating systems, Mac, Windows, Linux, but it also works on tablets and it works on your phone. So literally you could have just G-code on like your phone pulled up and you can look at it. And this is kind of where we're going to go with kind of like my next version. Oh, so it's hardware accelerated. So even on your phone, it'll still run really quick and smooth, and it's not going to be jittery and choppy. And because it's all just basically lines and like one cylinder, there's very low overhead, and it'll actually go through the G code on the side. And that way you could have at your machine, say, a tablet, and you could use a tablet to look at the G code before you even run on the machine. Now, I'm going to show one other thing that I was working on, and that is an integration with Google Drive. And this is kind of where I want to take this in the future, is integrating it further with the Autodesk API and Forge and being able to pull parts directly that way. But right now, I can open up Google Drive, and so it wants me to log into my Drive account, hit OK. So now I'm logged in. I can pull up my Drive and go into NC files, and I can see all the files that I have on my Google Drive. And not quite yet, but within a couple days, you'll be able to actually open and load them directly from your Google Drive. So that way you don't actually need to have like a flash drive with your code anymore. I'm not storing it on my server. It's actually all on Google's server still. So there's no security risk on my side. You just have to trust Google. And if you still don't trust that, anything done locally through the open command right here stays local on your computer too. So if you open a file locally and you don't have internet connection, as long as the web page was open when you had internet, nothing is actually sent to the server. So it's completely offline after the web page is loaded. So you have the option to be online and use the cloud, but not required. So the last point I just want to mention on this one is going to be the text editing and rendering, and actually controlling the flow as far as showing what line it's on. And this is something that I spent probably the most amount of time trying to figure out, was actually which editor to use inside the browser, because displaying a couple thousand lines of text is okay, but displaying a couple 100,000 lines of text is a lot more intensive on the memory on the browser side. So you actually can't render all of that text at once. You have to render it in sections. And so what I ended up doing was I went with something called Ace Editor, and that allows me to load very large files, G-code files, and have very low overhead. And comparatively, Brackets, which is what comes with Fusion right now, uses something called CodeMirror for their backend. And CodeMirror is meant to be run on many browsers all the way back into like the Internet Explorer days. And the one I'm using doesn't support all versions of like older versions of Internet Explorer, but it runs faster. So I'm sacrificing some support in order to gain more speed. And so if we look over here and I load up a 10 megabyte file, this is a 10 megabyte file. The whole file is already loaded. And even while it's processing, it's still able to just scroll through a couple 100,000 lines of text. So about 500,000 lines of G-code. And it still runs smoothly. So the text editor, I spent a long time trying to decide which one I wanted to use. So that's why when CJ said deciding which text editor to use and show that, even though I said it was easy, there was a lot that went into there because, oh, and the other thing is kind of getting just lots of ideas on this one, but it has syntax highlighting. So each one of these blocks, it highlights correctly. So if you have comments, the comments are highlighted correctly, your XYZ, your G codes, and then it also is themable. So later on down the road, theoretically, there is support to change all the colors, and you can have your own custom, like if you wanted the X's to be red and Y to be green, you could totally do that. Down the road, though. But that kind of leads into the next point of, what do I have planned for this? And so I've already shown you the Google Drive integration that I have planned, and that I've been working on for about the last week. My last roadblock that I hit was I needed to get approval from Google to actually access users' Google Drive data. And so you actually have to kind of justify why you need access. And then if they like you, they approve you. And so I finally got approval today, actually, this morning. And now I'm able to start rolling out kind of the Google Drive support. The 3D View Cube is that's something that I've been working on for a while. Interesting way of trying to keep it in the corner of the camera. But it's not a cube, technically. It's a rhombocubooctahedron. Very hard to say, but it allows you to kind of get all angles of the side. So now it's kind of like how it works in Fusion, but without animation. So added that in, so now you can quickly snap to different corners. The one cool thing that I kept is that when you load different files, the camera position won't change. So you're able to load, say, version A of a file and then version B of a file, and your camera position will stay the same. So you kind of see exactly where two toolpaths will be different if you're looking at different views of them. Now, these last 3 points are kind of my stretch goals in what I've been thinking about. And so I'm improving my 5-axis machine simulation, something that I've been wanting to do and I've been working on for a while, and that is showing over travel. So if you were to define kind of machine limits, it would tell you if you were going to go over the travel before you even put it in the control. Collision detection, this one's kind of a big one. So anytime you're running something with 5-axis, you want to check to see if it's going to ever collide with your stock or your model or the machine itself. That one also takes a lot more time to figure out mathematically. And then I also want to add in a full CAD model display and user-defined machines. So that way you have full control over looking at this. And it would kind of be like a full-on just machine simulator. And that's kind of why this one has the $, because I need to pay for my server somehow. But I'm thinking that way there's a way to go really far with this, still in browser. You can still do it on a Mac, and you can still do it on your phone, but you'd have all the freedom to either just use the backplotting capabilities or go into the machine side. Performance improvements, this was just kind of a general thing. Even though it can load 500,000 lines of text just fine, it's still technically not optimized. There's a lot of stuff that I have just kind of added in, but I haven't kind of optimized to go even faster. So that can load in a good 2 times faster, but I haven't exactly optimized that. And then the last one, setup sheet integration. This one I think would be kind of cool, and this would be on the setup sheets that are like the HTML setup sheets. I can add in links that will show kind of like operation 1, and you click the link there, and it'll just show the toolpath for the first operation or for the first tool, and you can get all the data for there, and then you can just kind of click around and put different settings that way and kind of make an interactive setup sheet instead of just a static setup sheet. So I thought that one might be kind of useful. That one's just kind of me just throwing out ideas, seeing what you guys would think. But overall, that's kind of what I've been working on for like the last 3 months, and it's finally getting to a point where it's actually, I'm kind of proud of it, and it's working really well. So even though it's in beta technically right now, I think I'm gonna take it out of beta after this next update with Google Drive. And beyond that, since I mentioned so many questions to you guys that were open-ended and kind of just gave a lot of what I do, I'd love to hear back from you guys as far as what you guys want to see, especially right now in the questions. I'm trying to read the questions as you guys are saying them too. But I want to hear back from you guys, the community, so that way I know what you guys want so I can start making stuff for you guys that you guys will use. So if you want to email me, xander.luciano@autodesk.com. Feel free, if you have G-code files that aren't working in that backplotter, send them over. I'll check it out and get it fixed. Instagram and Twitter, I have that handle, @Xander Luciano. Surprisingly, no one has that name. I mean, so I have that on everything. So youtube.com/Xander Luciano also. If you guys are just curious about kind of what I've done with machining, I kind of wanted to show you guys my channel real fast. Show you the type of videos I have. So I have everything from machining videos with my Pocket NC, which is just kind of me testing out 5-axis toolpaths, to tutorials that cover anything from like probing and templates over to kind of the more advanced stuff like wrap geometry, wrap toolpaths, the move command, and then if anyone happens to have a Pocket NC, you got a nice little video right there on how to actually set it up. And there's in the cam samples folder, there's a whole file already done for you guys. And then drone footage, because drones. So maybe I should look at some of the questions and see if anyone has any questions that I can answer.
And guys, also to let you know that Xander is very active on our forums, so if you go into our forums and have any questions, you can always get in touch with them through there. Feedback we're seeing from users are saying a lot of those added features and functions you'll have in your NCViewer look like they're going to love those features. It would be awesome. One question Stephen had where he said he was trying out NCViewer.com. He didn't have to register or log on or anything. He wanted to know, is that going to be standard going forward?
Yeah, that'll stay that way. So the logging in feature that I'm adding in is only if you want to use Google Drive, and then down the road you'll only need to log in if you're using some of the paid features like machine simulation. But beyond that, you can just go in anytime without logging in on any computer and it'll just work. And no ads too. There'll never be ads on that either. Very
awesome. The plan you have for trying to come up with an interface for working with post-processors to make that easy, I think it's just going to be an awesome project going forward. Hopefully a lot of our community will give you a lot of feedback and provide more information on what they're looking for. So guys, is there any questions that you guys may have, any remaining questions for Xander while we have him online?
And just to address Diego's question right now, most of the 5-axis stuff that's built into NCViewer.com right now is specifically me testing to make sure that that's how it matches on the Pocket NC. So anything you post out of there will look 100% correct on that site, guaranteed. Because that's how I check it.
So from our side, Al, CJ, Renee, do you guys have any questions for Xander?
Maybe just a quick comment, just so that there's not confusion. Xander's been working on this NCViewer thing with us and somewhat independently and somewhat in conjunction, we should clarify that the post-processor customization is a project he's directly doing with Autodesk. Not to say that this NCViewer isn't, but just want to make sure everybody's aware of the kind of fuzzy lines.
Yeah. Also, none of those are promises. Those are just dreams.
Yeah.
I make no guarantees.
So he's not making promises on behalf of Autodesk when he's talking about the NCViewer. It's an awesome viewer, though.
It is.
Thank you.
It's always great to dream. Well, cool, guys. It looks like there's no other questions coming in. And I know we're a little bit early on this one. Xander, if there's any more that you'd like to share?
I'm pretty good. I was surprised I got through all of that, actually.
So as you had mentioned, you do talk fast, but it's very crisp and clear, and I think you do a great job when you're presenting.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We really appreciate having you here, and I think the projects you're working on are just incredible. And so keep up the great work. And I think it would be great to have you back in the near future to touch base and see how progress is going, and see if we can also interact with the community to see if there's more that we can provide to help drive your work. Looks like a couple more questions did come in.
Yeah. So Diego is asking about how the finishes on the Pocket NC come out. I'm going to assume you're talking about aluminum, because I don't think it would actually machine steel to any degree. But the one time I've tried aluminum, or copper. Okay, copper is or is it brass? I've seen brass. I haven't done brass, but on metal it turns out surprisingly well. The trick to doing it is you want to try and keep your tool and your holders as short as possible with that, and then you'll get the best outcome. I did try once with like a ball end mill that was sticking out about an inch, and it was a 16th, and it was a little shaky. But as long as you keep it short and stubby, you're good.
So Stephen was asking if we have a true 5-axis post for the Pocket NC.
Yeah. So it looks like it should support multi-axis. Have you tried getting the one off of this site, off of cam.autodesk.com/posts by chance? Awesome. Yeah, try that first, and if that doesn't work for you, then we can talk.
So Paul had mentioned that there's also one on the Pocket NC blog as well.
Yes, we should probably talk to Pocket NC and make sure they're linking to the one that we update, because you can see from the update history we continue to update it. There's a question here regarding the Mazak post. How much editing will it require? I mean, it certainly depends on what Mazak post you're talking about. If it's a 3-axis milling one, it's a mill one, okay? Because we actually just put an Intergrex post up there that I know will take customization based on your unique machines, but it's a good starting point. The milling one should be in a very good place. So Xander, on the screen, you can just type Mazak and you can look at some of the Mazak posts there. So I guess the Intergrex one hasn't pushed live yet. If you click sample, this is just a good thing for everybody to know. You can see some sample code and see how much that looks like the code you want to run on your machine.
Intergrex post is in beta now. I think the posting might have put it up on the idea station. I'm not sure if it's public.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, it has special codes for all the multi-axis indexing.
That's kind of cool.
So very good, Xander. One question or answer to one of the questions is that I think we will try to make it very interactive and with the community. So as you develop stuff, then continuously people will start to see it made available, so you can get this fast feedback from the community.
Yeah, and that would be great to kind of expand upon kind of like what we have as first-party posts, but then have a nice third-party post community where people can grab things from too, hopefully, and share ideas too.
Good. So I don't see any more questions. For anybody that wants to get engaged in Xander's intern project on post customization, maybe we can put up a thread on the forum to kind of get the discussion going. But as Renee said, keep an eye out for that, so you can engage with all of us as that goes.
Thanks, guys.
Very awesome. Thank you, Xander. I really appreciate your being here today to share it with us and get active in our community and getting feedback as well.
Yeah, feedback is super helpful, and you guys have been, especially a couple of you guys on Instagram, have been really helpful at providing a lot of stuff firsthand as far as what works and doesn't work and what you guys would like to see, and that's kind of what I'm aiming to put into everything. So whatever you guys are looking for, just let me know.
So thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us, and we'll be here next week. And if you haven't joined our Wednesday webinars, if you're new to our interfaces, I highly recommend joining the Wednesday webinars to get a good idea of how our interfaces work with our CAM. Again, Xander, thanks for joining us. And guys, thanks for all the feedback. We'll see you next week.